So we're going to do a really quick, pretty straightforward paracord bracelet today. It's kind of a cool one because it doesn't need any hardware. We don't need any clasps or special tools. All we need is some paracord, something to cut it with. Scissors would be fine. I'm going to use a knife. And something to melt the ends of the paracord like this so we don't end up with fraying, and this is a lot easier to work with when it's melted and when we cut everything down and finish it at the end. That's going to make it nice. So I have about 11 feet of paracord here, and that's a good amount to start with. And mine's a little unusual because you can see I put two colors of paracord together. That's totally unnecessary for making your bracelet. That's only so that you can more easily see in the video exactly what's going on as we make this. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get the ends of your 11 feet of paracord. So measure out your 11 feet, cut that, go ahead and melt those ends. And now we're going to put those ends together, and we're going to pull all this through so we can find the exact center of our piece of paracord. And for me, it's not hard because I've got that seam at the center. But we're going to find center. Once we have that center, we're going to take and pinch that and measure the wrist that this is for. So if you're making this for yourself, it's real easy. But don't worry about it if you're making it for somebody else and you can't measure their wrist. There's quite a bit of adjustability in this paracord bracelet design. So we're just going to go ahead and measure that where that overlaps. Keep that marked. And I'm going to kind of make a letter M at the length that my bracelet's going to be. And we'll clean this up. We're going to go ahead and get all of the cord on the right side over to the right, and then to the left. And we're going to lay this down and try to hold this a little bit. I'll move my hands here so you can see what we end up with. So here's the center of our 11 feet. From that point to this point is the circumference of our wrist, and we've got this M shape. So we're ready to get started on making the bracelet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the cord that we have on the right, and we're going to bring it across the top and over to the left. And we can just set down all that extra. We're going to take our left side cord, which for me is black. We're going to go over that cord that we just brought over. It's going to go over the top of that, behind the center here. So it goes over that, behind the center, and we're going to come from the bottom up through this. We don't want to go down through, we need to come up from the bottom. So we're going to get the end of our cord here on this side. Just pull it up from the bottom. Just pulling that all through. So it's kind of a mess right now. We're going to go ahead and tighten everything up now. So we're going to try to keep our measurement here and just pull everything together. There we go. So go ahead, if you need to pause at that point to get all that, back the video up. This first knot here kind of sets everything, and you can even kind of take and see if your measurement still is pretty good. Again, there's going to be some adjustability, so don't worry about it too much. But make sure that's close. We didn't slip a lot while we were tightening that up. And that knot, we're going to just basically repeat that all the way through, and that's what's going to give us our bracelet. So back it up if you need to get that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part, which is repeating. Now, one thing that's helpful, I have two different colors of cord here, so it's not hard to keep track of which is which. But this cord that was on our right, we're always going to use it first to go over the top every time. So it's going to go, this time it's going to go across the top here. On the next one, it'll go back over the top. So a good thing to kind of do if you're using just one color of paracord is to just put a little knot in the end of that one so you don't lose track of it. So we're going to take our top piece, for me it's yellow, or the one with the knot in it. We're going to go across the top. We're going to take this one over the line and behind the center. So you can see it goes over that and then behind both of these. And it's going to come from the bottom up through that loop. Just pull it tight. Okay, we're going to do it again. We're going to take the one with the knot, our top line, bring it across the top. This one's going to go over the line, behind the center, and up through our loop. And then once you've done a few of these knots, you may start to find it's easier, rather than having it down on the table, to just pick it up and hold it in your hands. Because you can just take that across the top, this one over the line, behind the center, and up through the loop. Pull everything tight. There we go. Over the top, behind, and up through. And we're just going to repeat that exact same thing until we get where we're about out of line down here at the bottom. Okay, a couple more, maybe even just one more, because we want to leave a little bit of a loop down here at the bottom. I think I can get one more knot. People that are into this, you get special tools to be able to work through tight spots. But this is kind of like an introduction to paracord bracelets, so we don't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. So if I had a tool, I could probably put one more knot on there and still get these cords through here to finish that up, but that's just fine. I'm happy with that. We've got just a little tiny loop down here on the bottom, and we're going to take and finish everything off. I'm going to untie my knot that was kind of serving as a marker here on the end. I'm going to take my top line that had the knot in it down through that loop. Just like that. I'm going to take my other side and put it through the loop as well. And you can kind of mess around with this and how this looks. On this one, I went down through my finishing loop on both. And you can decide what you think looks good. I like that. You can also take this one and come up through, and it makes kind of a crisscross type pattern. Let's go ahead and pull that one out and see what that looks like. So we took our top line down. We'll bring our bottom line up. Then it's a little more consistent with the pattern, continuing to have that one on the bottom. Either way is fine. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to take our cords here, and up here at the top we have these little Mickey Mouse ears, little loops, and we're going to take our ends up through those loops. And if they're a little bit tight, sometimes you can kind of get and pull them with your fingers to open them up. But usually with a little persistence, you can go ahead and get those through there with just your fingers just fine. Okay, and you get the other one. I'm going to bring it also from the bottom up through that loop. Oops. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my hand and pull a little tension, because I want this to be able to get off of my hand when it's done, when I'm done with it. But I don't want it to be too loose. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit of tension around my hand and marking that. I'm going to go ahead and slide it down, keep my mark there, and we're going to do our finishing knot, which starts off real similar to how we began this whole thing. So I've got my measurement pinched there. I've got my letter M. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the right side and bring it across the top and over to the left. And we're going to take the left side. It's a little bit different because we're not going to come over the line like we've been doing. We're going to bring the whole thing just around the back and over to the right. So now we're going to take and bring this right side from the top down through our loop. And we're going to take our left side from the bottom up through our loop. And all we got to do is cinch all this down. So it starts to kind of look like just a mess, but once you really pull it tight, it looks like a nice little stopper knot. And I'm just going to test before I tighten that down too much. Yeah, I can still get it on my wrist. So I'll go ahead and pull everything really nice and tight. There we go. Now all we've got to do is trim off this extra. And I like to use just a knife for this. I think it makes a really clean cut. So I'm just going to put it down on my work surface and just cut those off. We're going to go ahead and hit those with the lighter. Get them not where they're on fire, but where they're melted really good. And then I just use the side of the lighter to push that down. And it flattens out those ends so nothing can come untied. And there you go. We have a no hardware, adjustable paracord bracelet.